Okay, flip to the back page if you would, please. We're going to start with Genesis chapter 4 next week, in case you want to read into that. That's what we'll be studying. But there's 4 reasons I'm going to cover as to why I do believe the theory of creation. This is the only time in your life a lot of you kids are going to get this. You're not going to get it in public school, you're not going to get it if you go to a state university, and you're not going to get it if you go other places. So I don't want to skip over it. I see the clock ticking at me, but I want to cover it thoroughly because it may be the only time in your life you actually get. You guys know there's 2 theories of how we got here. One we call, oh, Lauren, you got to go. No, that's right. I forgot, he told me. Anyway, there's 2 theories. The theory I've already given you, there's an idea that there was a great creator who came and created this universe. Some call him God, some may call him Allah or Jehovah. But there's a theory, that theory we call creation. What's the other theory of how we got here?
Big Bang.
Yeah, they call it the Big Bang / evolution. Okay, that life came out of nothing. And you and I are today the product of billions or trillions of years of this evolution. That's the 2 theories that are out there. And here's the 4 reasons. Number 1, I want you guys to take notes because, like I say, it's the only time you're going to get this. So if you check out now, you'll check out for life. So number 1, mathematics. Okay, mathematics tells me this. And you guys are good at drawing pictures. You guys know how pie charts work. Let's say if I wanted to prove how much is this size of the pie, you know what I would do? I would figure out what this radius is and what this angle is, and then I would know the area of the entire outside of the pie. Let's just take it for instance. Let's say that pie is 10%. How much is the rest of the pie? 90. Let's say this part is 20% of the pie. What percent is the other part? 80. Okay. Did you guys figure out how to do that in your grades? If you get like an F-, it's an N. Have you figured that out?
No.
Okay, forget it. If you didn't figure it out just then it doesn't apply to you. It's not possible for you to. Your parents won't buy it. Okay, so anyway, there's 2 theories of evolution, or creation. 2 theories of, I guess, being. I wanted to do one. Will you guys write this down? The theory of creation has really morphed into the idea of what they call intelligent design. The idea that either it was an accidental design or an intelligent design. And when you look at something as complex as like the human eye or the human ear, you think, gee, how could that have evolved from a one-cell organism? And when you see, a computer will never be able to do what a tenth of your brain can already do. And so and then to think that a computer could just accidentally, like think you could take a bomb and light your Toyota on fire and blow it up, and it would happen to just morph into a computer. That's about the same intelligence that it takes to believe that a rock turned into something as complex as a human being. But that's what they believe. There's an idea, creation anyway, is now called intelligent design, the idea that there had to have been a designer. And some don't believe it was a god, that maybe it was another alien from somewhere, or it was another whatever. But something had to have come to Earth at one point. And so anyway, back to mathematics. So let's say, as a for instance, if they can say evolution is 25% real, then what are the odds creation would be real? 75. Okay. The book that I used to do my research here, the author said, they said there's 3,200 times there has been a major macro evolution. Okay? A macro evolution is a major evolution. It's like when 2 foxes get together and their baby is a horse. You guys have seen the flow chart, right? If this animal became this animal became. Okay, 3,200 times that had to happen to get from one-cell organism to get to you and me. And the guy said that the chance that we would witness in our lifetimes a macroevolution is 1 in 10 to the 40th power that it could happen. Okay? What is 10 to the 40th power? How do I write that number out if I want to write along? Okay? I would have to do how many? Yeah, I'd have to do 41 zeros. Okay, I don't want to take that time. It doesn't have a name. That's why it's called 10 to the 40th power. It's not like gazillion, billion, trillion, million, because it is such a long name. So the chance that it could happen once is what? 1 in 10 to the 40th power. We need to also multiply that times 3,200. So 3,200 times something had to happen that was once in 10 to the 40th power of happening. What are the odds evolution is real? What are the odds?
0.5.
Okay? If it's this difficult to happen once, if it's probably never, ever, ever going to happen once, and then that same miracle has to happen 32,000 times. And remember, if it was a Big Bang in evolution, there's no God. Are miracles possible in a world without God? Yeah, it takes God to have a miracle. So the odds are, if you guys want to write this down, the math equation is 0.0 with the line over it. What's that mean? Yeah, it goes on for ad nauseum, it goes on for infinitum, and then you put a 1 at the end. The odds of evolution is true, so that means the odds that creation is true are what? Many of you guys have seen this number before. 99.9%. So mathematics tell me they have intelligent design, because evolution is almost impossible. Number 2, catastrophism. Who knows what a catastrophe is? Something really bad that's on a...
giant scale.
Yes, thank you very much.
Hurricane.
Something bad that happens to a lot of people
Hurricane.
in a lot of places. So what would the idea of catastrophism be?
They might be talking about the meteor.
Exactly. Everyone, whether you're an evolutionist or an intelligent designer, believes that there was once a huge catastrophe. The reason for that is because we dig in the earth, we find fossils. What does it take to create a fossil?
Death.
Well, besides your great-grandfather.
Dirt and
Um,
time.
Yeah, it takes bones dying or other things like
Water.
trees can be fossilized. It takes a lot of heat and it takes a lot of pressure. Okay, when my dog dies, does it become a fossil a million years from now?
Yes, sir.
No, it does not. Because what happens to the soft matter?
Okay.
Yeah, it decays and little bugs come up and microscopic organisms digest it all. What happens to the bones? Are the bones of our cats that we buried in the backyard going to be fossils that somebody finds in 10 million years?
Dust to dust.
No, exactly right. The dust returns to the dust. Okay? So how is it when we go out to places like Colorado and Wyoming and dig in the ground, we find so many fossils? Well, there had to have been a catastrophe. So what are some of the things they're teaching you in school? You said one of them. Who was it somebody threw out earlier?
Meteor.
Yeah, you said it was meteor storms.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they found hundreds of places the earth has been hit. Oh man, you guys have time for a fun story that has nothing to do with the lesson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys know how the moon is. There's what they call the dark side of the moon and the light side of the moon. Somebody explain to the class what that is.
It means that the sun's
It's
reflecting
the
off
sun
one
doesn't
and off the other. One side's turned.
Yeah, one side will get the sun regularly, and the other side never gets the sun. So as the moon is revolving around the sun, it's also spinning at about the exact same speed that it is revolving. So there's one side of the moon that never gets light, one side that always gets light. If you were going to guess which side of the moon would have the most meteors, which side would you guess? Or would it be even?
Probably it'd be even because the moon's still spinning. It's just
Yeah,
light.
exactly, because sometimes it's on this side, sometimes it's on that side, sometimes it's east, sometimes it's west. You would think it would be about even. And when we look at the moon, there are a few, like that's what they call the face of the moon, because some of the meteor splatters have been so huge. The back, when we first in the Apollo missions got around the back side of the moon, you know what they found? Billions. It's nothing but a big pockmark of meteors after the other. Something has happened so that the back side of the moon has taken millions and millions and millions. I was going to say this for chapter 6 when we get to Genesis, but it just hit me right now and it thrilled me and I thought it might thrill you. Do you guys remember when God created the earth, how it says He formed the air, and what, do you remember how it said He did that? Do you remember that exactly? It says He took the water and He split the water in half, and in between the waters He put the air. Wait a second, how is there air in the middle of the waters? And then it says out of the water He then pulled the land and called it earth. Well, what happened to that other water? Well, yeah, I think it's, you remember people used to live, how long did people live before the flood? Remember your Methuselah, your Adam?
Methuselah was like
900. He was 965. Yeah, he was the longest. Okay, 969. Moses. I mean, all the people. Adam, Cain, Abel. I guess Abel didn't. But all the rest of them lived to be 3, 4, 5, 600. The world was different before the flood. After the flood, it said God limited man's years to about 70 plus 2. That's about 72 is the average. But before, it was in the hundreds and hundreds. The world was different. And it says there was this water envelope. Here's my thought. And it says if it rained for 40 days, would it flood the earth? Actually, no. Because we've had times before in Indiana it rained like 10 days, and we only got about a foot or two of flood. Okay? So if it rained 40, would it cover Mount Everest 17,000 feet around the globe because it rained for 40 days? No. But what if half of the water was taken, as God said, and put around the earth to protect us from the ultraviolet light of the sun? And when God formed it, or when God wanted it to flood, you guys ever take a water balloon and poke a little hole in it? What happens with the water? I think our earth was enveloped. And because the dark side of the moon was what happened to be, I guess it was a full moon when God sent the flood, I think he sent the meteors, boom, 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 punctures that water envelope that is protecting us and sent it down for 40 days. It took 40 days for all that to... That's why Noah had to be put in a box made out of wood for his safekeeping. They called it an ark. Anyway, we'll get into all that in chapter 6. But that's why I think God did it with meteors. Threw a bunch of meteors through that ancient water atmosphere. Yeah.
And God numbered it. It was 120 years.
120 was the longest he said a man could. Yeah, 6 score. Anyway, we're getting way, way, way off the point. So there's an idea that there's a huge catastrophe somewhere, sometime. Does not creation give us a definition of a huge catastrophe worldwide? And I know we talked last time, so I don't want to repeat it. But they found these in the Grand Canyon in Arizona. When you find the fossil record, if fossils were being made time by time, you would expect the ancient creatures to be here. You know, like the dinosaurs. Uh-oh. Yeah, it's terrible. You'd expect to find the little trilobites and itty-bitty creatures, the least complex, and you get up here and it'd be a horse.
It's a beautiful horse.
Shut up.
Unicorn.
The unicorns you'd expect to find there, and then you'd expect to find the more modern creatures at the top. But when they find the paleontologists find the fossil records, they're all jumbled up. You might have a trilobite up here, and a fish that can walk up here. They haven't found that, by the way. I'm making that. And then you might find a dinosaur up here, you know, snacking on a human. Which, of course, they say can't happen because of the trillions and trillions of years theory. So anyway, one reason is because they have no idea. The evolutionists have no idea what kind of catastrophe could have happened. And how life, if a catastrophe happened that ended all life, wouldn't they have had to start back over at square one? So this whole idea of this 0.00001 would have had to start all over if there really was an ice age, or if there really was a flood, or if there really was a meteor shower. Then the impossible project has to start over from point number 1. And so, but our belief allows for a catastrophe. Okay, number 3. In a world without God, this will be the shortest one. In a world without God, a changed life and miracle is impossible. In my business, I've seen lots of changed lives. I've seen people who were totally strung out on drugs, who 3 years later have become someone who is a role model for others. If evolution is real, then miracles aren't possible. In a world without God, how could you have godly things happening? Can I help you? Oh, okay. Can we edit that one out? Thank you. Just have a black square over my foot or something. Beep. Anyway, and that's the whole point of the gospel anyway, is that you can't prove God to somebody else. If you guys have a friend or a family member or somebody in your life that you want to tell them about God, and you can talk to your blue in the face. You can give them math, you can give them science, till they're blue in the face. The best way is to change life. It's the best illustration that there is a God and He's in heaven. The 12 disciples were ordinary men. We know that they screwed up all the time. They cut off people's ears. They swore. They worried more about money than the relationship with Jesus. Jesus' 12 disciples were no winners. But 3 years later, they're willing to die for the gospel. And they have the courage to preach in languages they've never learned before and to go to places they never dreamed of going because they've been with Jesus. The greatest influence on somebody's life is how you live. If you want to win your friends and your family to Christ, change your life. They will want what you have if what you have is better than what they have. And so, but in a world of evolution, change is not possible. You just are who you are. You know, you're just evolving, you're just creating, you're nothing more than an animal. You and the monkey at the zoo are not that different in a world of evolution. And I just don't see the world that way. I see too many people who have made too many great significant changes. I've seen people, you know, abused and hurt in such incredible ways who can stand up tall and strong and can overcome. And so I know there's a God because I've seen God in people's lives. And number 4, I choose to believe the Bible is true. You're going to have to get to the point to where either Darwin's right or Moses is right. It's your choice who you want to believe. And do you want to go with a book that was written in 1829 that's now in its 23rd edition? Or do you want to go with a book that was written in 46 BC that's now in its 1st edition? And nothing's been found to make this have to change in 4,600 years. So, who are you going to believe? Who do you want to put your faith in? You know, a guy who, by the end of his life, said it's all dead, or a guy who actually never died? Do you guys know that? Moses went straight to be with God and didn't have to taste death. That's why you don't see his cemetery anywhere when you go to Israel. If somebody was to take you to Moses' grave or Elijah's grave, that'd be a great stunt, wouldn't it? You know, put a tombstone up and go with it. Hey, I want to show you something that I learned when I went to the Ben Franklin Museum. Ben Franklin had been in a lot of stuff, and this is how he had a way of how to make choices. What's that? What's it called? Punnett squares, is that it?
No, that's like...
There was a name he had for it. But it was how to make decisions. Like, let's say if Kia is thinking about, what's something Kia might think about doing?
Murdering Dan.
Okay. All right. She's thinking about murdering Dan. Yes, she's going to murder him. No, she's not. What's the best that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? Okay, what's the best that could happen? What's that? Punnett. Okay. I learned about it when I saw there's a Franklin Museum in Philadelphia. And he showed people how to make decisions. It was what he called the Poor Richard's Almanac, how to make decisions. And then what you do is you look at the 4 outcomes and you choose which one is what you want to happen. And then you know which decision to make in your life based upon the desired outcome. Okay, so let's say creation. I want you guys to fill this out with me. Did I do creation first? Yes. Yay! And let's say evolution is here. All right. Would you write on the upper bracket that it's right, and then the lower bracket that it is wrong? Okay? Let's say you believe in creation. Let's say Braden chooses to say the God of the Bible is going to be my God. And I'm going to follow him, and I'm going to believe all that it has to say. What if Braden is right? What does he get? Okay. He's in heaven forever. Let's say he dies and he realizes he was wrong. He wasted his time believing in creation. What happens? Actually nothing, is it? There is no God. Evolutionists were right. You guys ever see that Mr. Bean skit where he dies and goes to heaven? You guys know what Mr. Bean is? Have you seen some old TV?
Yes,
Yeah. He dies and goes to heaven, and he's in line, and he's so happy. And then God divides them all up into their religions, the Protestants, the Catholics, the Jews. And then he says, okay, Catholics, you can go to hell, blah, 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 you go to hell. Muslims, you go to hell. And the last 2 are the Protestants and the Jews. They're like, and he says, Protestants, you can go to heaven. Yeah, just kidding. The Jews were right. Ah! And funny skit. Okay, let's say you decide to believe in evolution. All right? And you die and you find out you were right. What's your prize? No, you get nothing. But let's say you die, and 1 minute later, you realize you were wrong. Okay? Kids, if there's nothing else I can say today to make you want to believe in a God of the universe, what's the worst that can happen to you? If you choose to believe that there's a God. Yeah, maybe you've wasted a few minutes in youth group listening to entertaining people in yellow shirts. That's the worst that's ever happened. But what's the worst that could happen to you if you decide to say, you know what, everybody else is doing it, I'm going to do what everybody else does? Well, everybody else goes to hell. What if you are wrong? Okay? Anyway, yeah, just the fact that there's evil in the world, I think is proof that there's a God. If there's a God, there's a Satan. If there's a Satan, there's a God. Or else they're both fake. Guys, open your eyes. Is there evil in this world? Child abuse, drugs, rape, murder? Open your eyes. There's a lot of evil in this world. If there's a Satan, then there's a God. That's all I've got for you. Hey, can I throw 2 Bible verses at you? Will you guys promise you'll look those up and read them? Because Paul in 2 different places. 2 Timothy, chapter 4, verses 1 through 5, says exactly what Paul is telling Timothy. Watch out, because people are going to try to answer all the questions about God. And one day they're going to even deny that there was a God who created the world. Isn't that incredible? He was predicting the year 1829 when Charles Darwin would write a book called The Origin of Species, and for some reason governments all over the world would decide to teach that to their children. And so now you guys are about the 7th generation that's been taught that, so you guys believe it's true now, because that's what you've been taught. Well, up until 1829, nobody even heard of that idea. Creation was taught in the schools because that was the only possible way.
I don't understand why they can't teach evolution, but they can teach.
That's my whole point.
I mean, creation, but they can teach.
If anybody watches this is in the public school system, that's my whole point. Is there are 2 theories? They're valid theories. If we put them up for a vote to the American people, my guess would be creation would win about 55 to 40. And so the American people believe in it. It is just as valid. The number of scientists who believe in it. But why they can only teach one? The reason is because you know what the textbook is for creation, or what they now call intelligent design? It's this book right here. And the most popular book that's ever been printed cannot be studied in your school. You guys can study books that nobody cares about, that nobody, honestly, somebody say amen. You guys can study books that mean nothing to nobody, and for some reason they're in your textbooks. And the most popular book ever printed, the book that you guys would love to study, and the book that I think would pack your schools and stop chasing people into private schools, but because this is being denied, you guys are getting half an education. And if you go to any museum or watch anything on TV, all they can tell you is the lie, because they say, oh, it's a separation of church and state. And no, it's a separation of church from state. The state cannot tell us what to believe in the church. The church can tell the state what they should think or what they should do. So yeah, don't feel like if I come, I do this with the 8th graders. I come in and I tell them the truth about God. Because, anyway, because I can. So, then the other one, the one in Romans, is awesome. Paul is almost like looking ahead to the year 2012 and predicting exactly what's going to be happening here today. And he said, if you guys, you'll read that and you're like, oh my gosh. He says stuff like, all creation screams and cries out that it is real. But in the future, men are going to deny that there was a creator, deny that there was a God. And because in a world without a God, say if you choose to believe this, then you're choosing to say there is no God. Well, if there's no God, then there's no right and there's no wrong, is there? Because who created right and wrong? God. Well, there's no God, so there's no right and there's no wrong. So you know what? I can do what I want. If I want to hurt some person, I'll hurt him. If I want to rob from somebody, I'll rob from him. You guys want to know why? Did you ever talk to your grandparents about what the world was like when they were growing up? I had a great chance to talk to my grandpa before he died. He lived at a time in which he didn't have a lock on his house. I said something to him about having house keys. He said he didn't have to have house keys till about like the 60s or the 70s. Didn't even lock his house. He had a key for his car, but he left it in the car. Why? Were there car thieves back then? No. He said that actually my dad went from Portland, Indiana to Johnson Bible College 4 times a year by hitchhiking in the 50s. Would you hitchhike all the way to Knoxville, Tennessee right now?
Yeah.
You would be killed. Why has the world changed? Why has the world changed in the last 60 years, the 60 years that my dad has been alive? Guess what they started teaching in the 1930s? You guys heard of the Scopes monkey trial? In the 1930s, this became what was commonplace in the American public school system. And then we were shocked. We said, you can't pray in school, you can't teach creation, But you can teach evolution, and you can talk about immoral stuff, but you can't talk about moral stuff. And about 2 generations later, our country is one in which people my dad's age don't even recognize it. He cannot believe what's happened in his lifetime. Well, duh. If you start telling people there is no God, they're going to start living like there's no God. Why would you treat people nice if you didn't have the risk of heaven or hell? You know, if you're just a baboon, well, you just go back to the soil when you're done. So yeah, I think it's that important. And your generation has to be the one that comes in and says, okay, if we're going to teach one, we have to teach the other. It's not fair. Okay, I've gone on long enough.